afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Our focus today is on your money and your memory. There's a growing body of research which shows that problems managing money are among the earliest and most reliable warning signs of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So this afternoon we've called on a certified financial planner whose insights on families and money have appeared in publications such as the Boston Globe, Fidelity Focus Magazine, and USA Today. Christine Moriarty is a financial educator who has also taught classes on financial management at several colleges, including Boston University and the University of Vermont. She's based in Bristol, Vermont, where she counsels individuals, couples, and businesses on their personal finances. Well, thanks so much for coming back and seeing us.
Thanks for having me, Judy.
This is a really important topic, money and memory. What does that mean to you?
They're linked closely because what people don't realize, a lot of people are talking about dementia or Alzheimer's, and it's growing as we age and as our demographics change, and the health issues, even of the football players and concussions, it all ties in. But what people are just beginning to understand is money and managing your money is an executive skill. And executive skills are the first to go in memory loss. And that is why it's really important to stay aware and stay on top of this topic.
So who notices these kinds of changes?
You would be surprised. I always want to say family members and spouse, which typically they do, but sometimes they are more in denial and want to write it off like, oh, that's just them acting funny. Yeah, exactly, it happens. Bankers, if someone has been at the same bank for a long time, never bounced a check, and suddenly has a series of bounce check, they know there's something else going on, the banker. They're not in the position to go tell everybody or whatever, but they may notice it first. Financial planners, someone who's had a financial relationship with a client, whether a financial planner or an accountant, if things are getting sloppy when they were organized, that could be a sign of some kind of memory loss.
Right, if it's tax time and they can't seem to get all their paperwork or misplaced papers.
Right. Now, there are people who can't get all their paperwork together.
Well, but that's true.
Their system changes or something, their way of being around money changes. And that's a long-term advisor would pick that up.
Mm-hmm. So what professionals need to be consulted when there is a memory diagnosis?
When there is a memory diagnosis medically, you definitely want to get on board right after the doctor is where's the legal documents? Meet with the lawyer. There should already be legal documents. It shouldn't be triggered by memory loss because often they can't be drawn up if someone is too far down the path of memory loss.
So that would be the first thing to do, is to get your financial house in order in preparation for.
Right, in case there is memory loss. There are people who live to 95 with no memory loss, but it just is a great idea to have those legal documents in order and meet with a lawyer to have your power of attorney and if you need a trust in line and your medical directive. Once there is some kind of memory loss diagnosed by a doctor, you want to just go back and polish up those legal documents, talk to a financial advisor, perhaps get a bookkeeper on board, get other professionals involved. If you are an adult child who's out of town or a spouse who has your own medical issues, you might want a geriatric care manager involved as well, so that there's another set of eyes on everything.
At what point should you bring your children in on the discussion?
Well, that's an interesting case, and some people don't want to bring their children in, and you should at least broad brush your children. Mm-hmm. There's typically one person who may be the power of attorney and who's handling it, so they would need to know more about the financial pieces, but everybody doesn't need to know everything about the financial situation, but they should be aware that there is memory problems and we need to keep an eye on this money situation.
Talk a little bit more about what you mean by a financial assistant.
There's two different kinds. A formal financial assistant would be that bookkeeper I mentioned. So a couple has managed their money together all of their lives. The main person who has done that is now starting to have some memory loss. The other person may know how to do it so they can take over. That would be an informal one. A formal one is, let's bring in a bookkeeper so it helps both of us moving forward. So there's someone else balancing, making sure, in some cases they can write checks and then just have someone sign it, but they make sure enough money's going in there, there's consistency around that checkbook. An informal one is much more like a family member or a friend who might be the power of attorney to manage that money. I'll give you my own example. My mother has Alzheimer's and was diagnosed over 12 years ago. But in the beginning, it isn't a diagnosis of, oh my God, they can't handle money at all. Mm-hmm. Some people want to take the checkbook away from them. If they've always done it, they can continue to do it. And in
Right.
my mother's case, because she was so easygoing as she always was, she kept the checkbook, but every time I went back to Boston, I would look at it again. Meanwhile, I had it online. So computerized can help a lot, especially with the generation if your parents or the person who does have memory loss isn't online. Having just the eyes, you can set up an online account and just keep an eye on what's going on. So if anything unusual appears.
Yeah, we had, for my mother-in-law, she's lived in the same community for over 30 years, and so we had her banker on board, which was a huge help.
And that's exactly, you can get people to work like that. And that's good to hear. If you are in the same community, there is a payoff on that. Or in a assisted living or some kind of community where there is a management. The other way an informal one can work, I know as my mother's disease progressed, she still had her checkbook, but a lot less money went in there.
There you
and
go.
she paid fewer bills. So she could handle 2 bills a month. And I could take care of the rest, but she didn't feel like it was taken away. So don't consider as much the person as the disease. And Martha Richardson of the Alzheimer's Association always says that. Consider the person. So in your mother-in-law's case, the banker was on board to give a highlight, but your mother-in-law could go in the bank and take care of things.
Right,
And
but if we'd get a phone call if anything went sideways, which was a big help.
Exactly, and they knew who to call instead of the poor banker sitting there going, something's wrong, but I don't even know who to reach out to.
Right.
And if you do that, there are people, like I have an aunt who never paid a bill, never really wanted to pay a bill, was delighted to have a little memory loss so that everyone would take everything off her hands. But that's a different situation than other people, so be respectful of who it is.
All right, you talked a little bit about technology as far as having your mom's system online.
Yep.
Is that something that you recommend?
I do recommend it. I'm not saying kids or financial assistants should be nosy, but it's just at the point of memory loss. It's when I first learned my mother had it, it was like I was panicked about almost everything because you don't understand it all. But as I got to know that it was long, complicated math tasks that were difficult, then having that computer system really helped. And maintaining a balance in the checkbook for her. So here was a beautiful bookkeeper. That's what she used to love doing. Now I had to do it and balance it to the penny to make her happy. But those little things are taking care of it. But you can do it online. You could do it with spreadsheets. And you would have to be the person, whoever's overseeing it, to get ready for tax season as well.
Right, and as you said, consider the person because everybody is obviously an individual, so different tactics will work with different situations.
Exactly.
So what advice or recommendations do you give about joint accounts?
So joint accounts for couples, absolutely we need joint accounts. But what happens is sometimes a power of attorney says, oh, I will just take over your account, Judy, because you have some memory loss, and it will become Christine Moriarty and Judy Simpson. Well, that kind of triggers a whole other bailiwicks legally and financially. Whereas if I had memory loss and you were my power of attorney, you could still write checks out of my account, just as long as the bank had the right paperwork. So that simplifies it because then my heirs would get the money upon my death, not you. Anytime someone has joint accounts, they're at risk for liability of money loss, sued, divorces. It's sharing money. So I don't recommend that. I recommend that you go the legal approach and have a power of attorney.
I was going to say, because that who controls the money.
Right. It is who controls the money, and it's the power of attorney can do it on that account. But if you're sharing everything with joint accounts, just to make it easy, that kind of was the old way of doing things before there was a lot of these legal documents in place and understanding for them. So I'd stay away from joint accounts unless there's only one child and one parent.
Yeah, but in the case where there are a couple of different siblings.
Right, exactly. You want to keep it clean, very clean.
So financially, what other things need to be considered?
I think there is credit cards, there's credit reports, there's access to the accounts with bank debit cards and things like that. So I think you want to say, okay, where else could they access money? And I had a conversation this spring with someone who said, oh, my husband keeps buying things online with his credit card because memory loss, you're not making good decisions and they're enrolling in things. So you might want to get rid of people's credit cards. and maybe perhaps only use a debit card on an account with a small amount of money in it. So things are going to get rejected if it's more than they need to spend, or wipe out the debit or ATM card altogether, depending on the situation. One thing, everyone with memory loss, as they progress into the mid stages, their credit report should be frozen. So you can do that. We can all access our credit reports and see how good they are, what the history is, but you can also request the credit companies freeze the credit so that they can't go in and, like another financial planner told me after I spoke on this topic, my mother went in and bought a brand new Cadillac, traded in her 10-year-old Chevy and had a big loan on a Cadillac, and there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, you want to freeze that so those kind of things can't happen.
What about advice for folks who are watching who really want to kind of get their finances in order to make it easier if this happens to them? I mean, I know with my mother-in-law, we had no idea, all these little accounts. And, you know, my father-in-law, who passed away almost 10 years ago, had some little accounts. And, you know, it just got a little muddy when it came to selling her home, and there were questions about a certain loan. Was that paid off? And we had no idea.
Right. So one thing, and I recommend this for everyone, couples, singles, is to have a little financial space. I call it a financial command center, so that everything goes there. Not only for you and your husband, for my husband and I, so that anyone can follow the tracking there. The easiest thing to do is to have the conversation with whoever. If I was the one, a single, and I would have a conversation with someone who's going to be the power of attorney for me. Here's where everything is. One of my clients types up a sheet every year and updates it with all of his accounts, where they are, the balances, and then gives it to his power of attorney. He says, don't open it.
Yeah.
You don't need it. But when you
If you
do, it's right here and all the records are here. And it really makes it easier to streamline. It's not just simply about the number of accounts, like you said. It's loans, it's this. So if everything's in one place, there's so much unclaimed money in the state of Vermont and every state because people don't know what someone else has. So it's easier to do when the person's alive and healthy. And so if I was asked to be power of attorney or executor for someone, then I would make sure all that was organized. And that's what I did for my parents, it took hours, but I think it took me less time because they were alive and well to do it than if I had tried to put it together after the fact.
And it is actually a very, obviously practical thing to do, but it's also a very thoughtful thing to do.
It's a gift. If you want to give your kids a gift or a family member a gift, say, I want to give you this time and I will organize my finances for you. And if you're really dragging your feet on it and you're going, well, I'm 65, I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere, or have memory loss, I mean, it is 50% of the people over 80 who have memory loss. Do it anyway, because it's been proven that people who organize their finances have more money because they're paying attention.
Right.
So it's a gift to yourself as well. It's not just a gift to someone else.
What are some of the resources that you recommend to people?
There's a couple of my favorite books is Still Alice, which was just written recently about someone who has early Alzheimer's, and it's written like a novel. I couldn't believe it. I was with my mother caring for her for a weekend and reading the book. And I said, oh my God, this book is so good. It wasn't like living in it. It gave me the experience of being an Alzheimer's patient and understanding how the brain works. There's another classic book about Alzheimer's written with information in it called The Forgetting. And those are both great books. There's a lot of resources that you can get up at Fletcher Allen. They have a community library, and the Alzheimer's Association also has books on loan. So there's tons of information out there on that topic.
So, which is great because the more knowledge you have,
the more knowledge you have, the better. And here's the other thing I've learned. If you've met someone with Alzheimer's, and if you met my mother and she's lovely, you've only met one person with Alzheimer's. It's not like the disease turns out the same in every single person. The memory loss and the short-term memory loss is there, but beyond that, there's personality changes. There's all different kinds of pieces of it.
How can people find out more about your professional work?
What I do a lot of speaking and writing. And my business is at MoneyPiece. I try and make it easy to people remember. So moneypiece.com, or they can reach me through the phone. And I know I speak and write in different places. I want to educate people about this information to make their life easier.
We have a few seconds left. What is the most important tip you can give people about their money?
About their money. Well, I was going to say about someone with memory loss, love them first. And about their memory, just about their money and memory, just be patient because they're moving slower.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Judy.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.